Hello, everyone. You have all the reports in front of you. I don't have a whole lot to add except for a couple of highlights from October month end. Our revenues are healthy, expenditures are lower than budgeted, PPRT continues to far exceed our budget expectations, and other revenues are steady. I'm happy to answer any questions related to those. Yes, I was going to ask if I neglected to put that as an informational item, but that has been our world lately. So I'm happy to provide an update on that. I'm pleased to say that yesterday's go live went extremely well. We have resources from Tyler Technologies, the software program holder, and Barry Dunn, our consultant here this week and next week, helping us implement everything. All the data has been loaded successfully into the production go live environment. We have a training room downstairs available for anyone across the county that has questions on if they're entering an invoice and they need help, or they need to do a budget transfer, or the system isn't working properly. They can call into this number, and one of the many resources have been assisting them. Yesterday was a bit busier with the first go live day, and but today has been steady, and we haven't been receiving the same questions today as we did yesterday, so that's good. We also built training resources and distributed those. They're on the county's intranet, so all county staff have access to them. Step-by-step instructions on how to do each individual task within the program, so these will be forever available for them as they continue and our resources leave us here. Our next milestones are next week we'll run the first payroll out of the system. So we're feeling very confident about that. We've put a lot of time and resources into making sure everything will run smoothly for the project. So I just want to give a big shout out to everybody in the county that has been involved in this project. Then we'll run W-2s and 1099s. And then in mid-March, we will do our first close out of the system, and we will close November and December. So later this month for the January committee meetings, we will not have a November month-end report like we usually would, because we won't be closing it until mid-March. And so I can provide you any details you need ahead of time, but it's not going to be closed out until mid-March. And then we will implement our new timekeeping system, ExecuTime, in March, and roll that out. We're going to do a pilot for that and start with a couple of departments, not on this payroll, but hopefully on the next, in the next couple of payrolls, and then roll it out across the county. And then, as I mentioned, mid-March we'll close, and learning the new budget module in May with the Tyler resources. So I'm really excited about the different opportunities available for reporting and analysis. So I would really like to work with you all to see how best we can provide valuable, useful information to you on a more regular basis. So, have any questions?
Any questions? Okay. I just want to make a comment regarding this report on the checks audited and approved by the finance department. Mm-hmm. I know you're really busy right now, but in the coming months, I kind of want to talk to you about that. It's very, very high level. I'm wondering if there's something we can do to give us a little bit more information on what those checks are and what department, et cetera, things like that. So I'll be wanting to talk to you about that in the coming months, just to make that easier report for us to understand and read.
I agree. It's this was out of our old reporting system, and our new reporting system will have a little more robust opportunity for us to break it down however you'd like.
Great,
So,
great.
yeah,
Okay,
transparency is good.
okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Going back. Okay, November and December 2022 accounts payable review.
So with our transition to Munis, we ran our last check run out of Pentimation, our prior accounting system, on December 15th, and then we were kind of on a hiatus until January 3rd. We successfully processed that last check run, and we successfully processed our first check run yesterday out of Munis. So we did a very small check run just to test it out first, and then tomorrow we'll have a larger one. So the treasurer's office has been great to work with on this project and making sure everything is in line with the bank, and you would not believe all the intricate details that go into making sure a check can get processed until you're in the system. So we also trained, we've been talking for several months about training that we wanted to roll out to the county staff, since we have a decentralized AP process, to educate all the staff members on what accounts to charge expenses to appropriately, so that we can give better reporting and more accurate reporting to the board and the community. So we did that training in November and December, and we came up with a guide that is again posted on the internet for all county staff, where they not only have their like a mapping of their old account number to the new account number, but a detailed description of what types of items are supposed to be charged to that account number, and examples of vendors that they're familiar with that should be charged to that. So we are working, all the invoices come through electronically, and we go through an approval process in the finance department. And if an incorrect account code is used, we can reject that invoice and send a message back to the individual that entered it, explaining to them why it was rejected and what account code they should use. And that has been working well within the last 2 days. So we've been able to, we're just trying to start everybody off fresh and correct right off the start from the get-go. So that's been helpful.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. Headington Oaks financial report.
Yes. So I have an update from our consultant that we have contracted with on the Medicaid. He has been in touch with the staff at Human and Family Services. We are in the queue. He's wanting them to review all of our accounts in one instead of individually. I think they prefer to do it individually, but he's working with them on that. And he said that they should be able to get to that in the next few weeks for that particular one. On Medicare side, we, after the write-offs that you had approved at last month's board meeting, we went ahead and wrote off those accounts. We're working with RSM, and we've provided them the documentation to process it through on Medicare side. I believe we filed the 855. It's a form that to terminate enrollment with Medicare. And I believe I'm waiting on RSM to tell me what our window is. But I believe it's a 30-day time frame as to when they receive that, where we have to have all the paperwork in. But we're on track to have all that completed for them. And then hopefully within a couple of months afterwards, we'll find out how much we would be able to receive from that. And then we have an account with the state's attorney's office, a hospice account. And I don't mean to put Jenny on the spot, but if she has an update on that, I wasn't able to get one in time with everything going on before the meeting today.
Yes, I do know there is another status court hearing this week, I believe on Friday, and there is a payment plan that has been sent to outside counsel that should be executed and returned. So it provides for installments to be made and the entire amount paid off by August, the settled amount. Yep.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's all on Paddington.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. Moving on, American Rescue Plan Act summary.
The summary is in your packet. I will just add we have a lot of projects coming up in this fiscal year, some that were rolled from fiscal 22. So we're going to be very busy with that. And our next report to the Treasury is due the end of this month. So I will distribute that to the board in the next packet after that's been filed.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, we are at a joint resolution, appropriation into FY 2022 budget for additional supplies purchased by local road districts. And this is a joint resolution with Infrastructure Committee. Phil, I believe that was approved unanimously?
Yes, it was.
Okay. So I need a motion to get this on the floor. Brandy, second. Eden. Okay. Do we have any? Who's gonna
I
take?
could cover it if
Okay.
you'd like.
Okay.
Unless you want to, Scott. It's up to you.
No, go ahead. You're on a roll.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. This is Amy covered it yesterday and probably will do a much better job than I will, but she wasn't able to make it today. So the Township Motor Fuel Tax Fund, it's a special revenue fund. It's supplied from IDOT. And the county oversees the funds. They're actually the township's funds. We're just a pass-through, and it's kind of an IDOT formality on approving and how we can spend it. There's $300,000 that they would like to have appropriated into the fiscal 22 budget to cover expenses for additional supplies that they had to purchase for the local districts.
And I believe that's coming out of reserves, correct?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions?
Someone's phone, I think. It's kind of scary that it knew what we were talking about.
Okay, no questions? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any nays? Okay. Moving on to committee action. Review of executive session minutes. Oh, motion, we'll go motion. Linda, Rob, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. It remains the recommendation of the state's attorney's office that all previously held minutes continue to be held as the need for confidentiality still exists, and to destroy executive session audio recordings more than 2 years old, except for those that relate to pending litigation.
Okay, we've approved this pretty much in every committee since yesterday, so all those in favor? Aye. Any nays? Okay, thank you. We are at discussion, 2023 legislative agenda. Scott?
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. You'll find this on starts on page 41 in the packet. It's a discussion item. This is a lead-in to the joint legislative breakfast that we have scheduled with the Peoria City Council and our Board of Health. What's in the packet is what we're recommending to be our component of that agenda. Many of the requests in the various categories will actually also be joint requests from the City Council. Once we get a little bit of feedback and discussion from today, we'll be happy to bring it forward as a formal resolution for adoption. But this is for new board members on an annual basis. We meet with our state legislative delegation in a breakfast. You should have a meeting request for that. We work with the city council and the city of Peoria and the city manager's office, and then the Board of Health and Monica as the public health administrator, to create a joint legislative agenda. That's how the legislators prefer it be done. And how we arrive at this document is I look at what we did in the last session and prior sessions. I solicit ideas from elected and appointed department heads and officials within the organization. And then Patrick from the city, Monica, and myself look at things and pull things together, and then make sure that we weed out anything that we might be objecting to. So if there's an initiative that we want to push that the city would not like, we want to make sure that we resolve those issues before it gets to the policymakers. And then there's where there are issues that are of joint concern, we identify those as well. So we've got a variety of categories in how this is structured. The first are requests for direct sponsorship. These are items where we are asking one of our legislative delegation to specifically sponsor a bill in the spring session related to this item. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes when they do, we're able to actually make it law. Sometimes we're not. It all depends on the situation. We try and keep this list to a minimum, and in general, the entire list to a minimum, because there's only so many things that the legislators are actually going to try and push in general, because they actually have similar requests from most every local unit of government in their districts, and non-governmental entities, whether it be from not-for-profits or the private sector as well, making similar requests. And there are thousands and thousands of bills that are actually filed in both chambers. So real quickly, requests for direct sponsorship. And even though the first two bullet points say county requests, these are really going to end up being joint requests with the city. The first is the extension of the 911 service charge. Currently, it's $1.50. That goes for public safety communication services, mostly the Emergency Telephone System Board, or the E911 board. But it has a sunset provision, so we're looking to make sure that the fee is sustained beyond the sunset, and we actually are looking for it to increase. This is something that the ETSB has been working on with legislators for a number of years. It is a request that we've seen in prior years from both the county and the city. So this is nothing new. It is one that we continue to support. Second, again, is that's shown here as a county request, would be a joint request with the city. That's economic development incentives. Illinois does have some limited tools for local governments to support economic development. So we support the expanded economic development tools that cities and counties have compared to other states that are our neighbors, or that are actively attracting new growth and development. Those could range from job development credits to set aside benefits for economic development, or any of the life sciences manufacturing tax credits that might be out there. Those are just a couple of examples. Third bullet point is a joint request, again, for an automated traffic enforcement system. This really doesn't impact us directly. It impacts the city, but the way the current legislation is authorized and written, Peoria, unlike similar cities its size compared to suburban Chicago, they are preempted from exercising their authority for using automated traffic law enforcement systems, red light cameras. They're asking for, the way the legislation is written, it has to be done at the county level. They're asking for the county to be added so that they have the ability to make their own policy decision as to whether or not they would want to use that type of technology for speed control on city streets. Fourth is hours, and that is related to code enforcement. And this is where we would ask a legislator to sponsor legislation that permissively expands code enforcement powers for county governments. That means that if the legislation were to pass, we would then have a policy decision of this board and any other county that might be included as to whether or not you want to use those powers granted to you by state law. The expanded powers would include, but not be limited to, creating the ability for us to establish an absentee landlord registration program, moving control of various public health and safety regulations from state agencies to local government, such as the county and the county health departments. This would allow us and other counties to better address and resolve code enforcement issues, including situations where we have uninhabitable structures actually being occupied. Shout out to Member Daly, something I've been working with her on for the last couple of months related to this specific issue. This ideally would encompass some of the issues that she has experienced during her day job with Representative Spain's office and constituent services there that we're seeing with increasing occurrence in the unincorporated areas of the county. Final bullet point here is modernizing our digital records. The Local Records Act is not current with technology. It's not kept pace with technology. So this one is actually also a request of the Illinois State Association of Counties. So it's several other counties from that organization that we're a member of, and this would allow us to store files electronically as opposed to paper. It would also better address how we should store email, voicemail, and other types of electronic records. I'll pause there briefly to see if there's any questions about any of those requests for direct sponsorship.
Well, I guess I would ask on the expanding of the code enforcement, are we looking to have some of that funded by the state? Because obviously that would create more work for...
It has the potential to create more work for us. I think our approach would most likely be to try and recoup some of our costs through fines and fees of the violator, and then creating expanded ability to either put liens on that property or to take the property owner to a small claims court or something along those lines. I think that's, from a financial standpoint, that would be the remedy that we're looking at this point in time.
Linda?
Could you tell me, where did the idea about the automated traffic law enforcement system amendment come from?
That came from the city. It is something that they've asked for. I believe we did not do this last year, so 2 years ago would have been the most recent time. I believe it was in their proposal at that point in time, and perhaps even in 2020. Like I said, for them to be able to do it, it requires the entire county to be added. I would not expect, other municipalities could then have that right as well. We have very few traffic signals in the unincorporated areas, so I would highly anticipate that we wouldn't pursue it ourselves, but it gives that flexibility to the city and the other municipalities within the county.
Well, I was just curious because there is a lot of information that's been gathered saying that the red light, for example, companies have some very questionable practices, and I'm being very euphemistic in using that language, and that actually several places have done away with that because their citizens realize that because of the timing, they're actually issuing all these tickets to people who really shouldn't have tickets, but it's based on the way they set that up. And so that's why I was curious to know. Thanks.
Brandy, did you? That was okay. Steve?
Yeah, I had one item, but I want to echo Linda's comment about the electronic or automated law enforcement. So it's my understanding from speaking with the city and others, it's not just red light, it's also speed control. And I've done a lot of research and study along with others, and I've heard a lot of complaints about the companies that offer it. They collect about 70% of the revenue generated by sending tickets to automobile owners, not even the drivers. And it doesn't go on your traffic record. It's just it's a charge to your automobile. But there's a lot of things, and I've spoke with the city quite a bit on this topic of, let's make sure we do our homework before we create conflict. But that's a city discussion. I know they have to get the county to even be inclusive, I guess, to consider it. So I'll leave that alone. But the question I wanted to talk about was the economic development incentives. It's more than just Peoria County. Have we looked at the Illinois Association of Counties trying to get some traction with this incentive? I like the idea, and I've always been a pro-business trying to get something together, but we do this alone as Peoria County. It's probably just a silent gong. There's not a lot there, but if we get some other significant counties to partner up with us, have some of their legislative members support it, I think we can gain something.
All right, so two quick things. One, we would not be looking to make it exclusive to Peoria County and Peoria City. I think there's value in having those incentives available for municipal governments and county governments across the state. Second, based on the discussion that we've just had, if the committee's more comfortable with having the automated traffic law enforcement system item be carried exclusively by the city and we're just neutral, and so it's a city request instead of a joint request, that's easily done. I would just change in the document the word joint for city.
See a lot of yes shaking on that. Okay.
Done.
Jennifer, did you have a comment?
That was actually going to be my recommendation, but that
Okay.
aside, I don't know that you're going to have a lot of members hopping on that one, so it's probably a moot point anyway.
All right. Second category is funding requests. First is a joint request, and this is to appropriate Rebuild Illinois authorized projects. So if you remember, Rebuild Illinois was a state capital bill. That bill authorized but did not appropriate dollars for a slew of projects locally throughout the entire county. There's over about 50 projects totaling over $106 million. Some of those are ours, some of those are the city of Peoria, some of those are other units of local government, some of those are not-for-profits. Not all of them have actually had money appropriated in the state budget for them to actually be realized. And so this ask is to put that appropriation within the state's next budget cycle so that those dollars can start to be spent in our community. Where there's construction related items, then that's obviously economic development and job growth for the community. Specific to us, the dollars for the reconstruction of Lake Street between Knoxville and Sheridan, and the reconstruction of Gale Avenue between Forest Hill and Sterling has been appropriated because Amy is working with DCEO on a grant agreement, and hopefully we'll have that forward here in the next several months so that we can actually start that project. But what is not included in the appropriation thus far, to the best of my knowledge, is the $500,000 that was appropriated or authorized for the veterinary surgical suite at PCAPS, at the animal shelter. So, we want the ask here is to have those dollars appropriated for the projects that were authorized. Second is a joint request. This is the co-response law enforcement model that the city police department instituted last year. It's an ask for $3 million to the city of police. Sheriff's office is engaged with that, although we're not providing direct services the way we are, and the health department is also engaged in that process. So because of the engagement, it's a joint request, even though the city would go directly, the money would go directly to the city. And then the third is a request from jointly from the Board of Health and from us, and that would be for violence reduction, and that is an ask for $1,250,000 so that the county and the health department can establish 2 catchment areas using the Cure Violence Global implementation strategies. So if everyone remembers, in the summer, the health department took up the mantle for Cure Violence, and the next step in that process is to establish 2 catchment areas and start the implementation. After talking with Monica, $1,250,000 would be the ask for that. All right. Any questions about funding requests? All right, moving on. Vertical capital. So there's 2 types of capital projects, vertical and horizontal. Vertical relates to buildings and facilities. Horizontal normally relates to roads and bridges. Under vertical, joint request is relocation of the State Street Post Office. Yes, that does also require some work by the federal government, which we fully acknowledge. But the ask is for $10 million to relocate the mail processing facility and the U.S. Postal Service's maintenance facility that is currently at State Street. That 15-acre area then would be open for development in the warehouse district, and actually is one of the 3 potential sites for the passenger rail station should we ever get passenger rail to Peoria. Next is a request for $10 million from us for jail modernization. As we all know, the jail was built in 2 phases, the first in '85 with the addition in 1997. The portion built in '85, the mechanical systems are at life cycle, and this is a significant drop in the bucket, but a drop in the bucket nonetheless in terms of what we really need to be looking at to do to keep the jail viable for the next several decades. Third, working with the courts, courtroom technology, and that's $500,000 to acquire technology improvements to our courtrooms so that both the Department of Corrections and the Department of Juvenile Justice can reduce the number of transports from state facilities to the county when someone that's in the state's custody is making a court appearance. Any questions on vertical capital project requests? Okay. Horizontal requests. First is a joint request with the city and I don't know if they know it or not, but also Limestone Township, and that's Laramie Avenue. It's part of it is a city street, part of it is a township street, but it's a major north-south road that borders the city in the poorest parts of the community. The ask is for $10 million to reconstruct Laramie, the entire stretch. The rest of our hours, the first couple are along the lines of the stated policy of the board, and that is whenever and wherever possible, we want to try and improve county highways within any one of the 13 municipalities we have, and then jurisdictionally transfer those to the municipality. To that end, we have an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Peoria that was from the early mid-'60s that defines how we do that with the city of Peoria. So the first is $7.5 million to reconstruct Sheridan Road from Glen Avenue to Northmore to what's called an urban cross-section, which would mean that there would be stormwater, there would be either sidewalks or some type of path along one or both sides, and would get us away from the rural cross-section, the open ditch that we currently see today, most notably along the western side of Donovan, formerly Donovan Golf Course, now Donovan Park. Next is Willow Knolls reconstruction. That's $6.5 million to reconstruct Willow Knolls from Allen Road to University Street. That's what we call the eastern half or the eastern leg. Again, from a rural cross section up to an urban cross section. Next is Cameron Lane reconstruction. This is $12 million to make safety improvements on Cameron Lane from State Highway 116 to US 24. So that's the entire stretch. The proposal is to expand in the paving of shoulders and to make structural improvements to the road surface. Next would be Glassford Road. Glassford Road is on here because we actually applied for and did not receive a grant from the local MPO. And that is to try and secure funding in the amount of $12 million to address mine subsidence issues and to reconstruct Glassford Road from Glassford Canton, which is inside the village of Glassford, down to Route 24. Any questions on horizontal capital projects? Okay. Last section is called requests for position support. So these are not where we're asking a legislator to carry a specific bill, but as this topic comes up in any bill that may get filed and starts to move, we would ask that our legislators take this position on any of those bills. So the first is joint, and many of these are recurring from past years. So the first is to protect state shared partnership revenue. So this deals with the local government distributive fund, personal property replacement tax, local sales taxes, motor fuel tax, just making sure that we're stating our position that we would not want the state government to raid those dollars, and where they can be reconstituted to prior levels to do so. Second, again, joint request is to reduce the sales tax administrative fee. Several years ago, a 1.5% administrative fee on locally imposed sales taxes was created that helps fund the State Department of Revenue's operations. Third is automatic appropriation authority. So there are several things such as motor fuel tax, both county and township, video and casino gaming, our use taxes, our 911 revenues that continue to be generated. And this one originally came about when there was a budget impasse during the prior administration, and we saw, along with all local governments, a significant drop in our revenues because we were not distributed our allocation of motor fuel tax for several months while the General Assembly and the state government worked through their budget impasse. The money was still being collected. We were all still paying motor fuel tax when we filled up our vehicles at the pump, but those monies, our statutorily obligated fair share of those monies, were not being distributed to us. So this asks that if a bill along these lines comes up, we want to make sure that our position is known and that we would be in favor and support automatic appropriation authority for those types of things. Next, from the county's perspective, public notice notification and modernization. This is one that's an initiative of both the Illinois Association of County Board Members and Commissioners and the Illinois State Association of Counties, and it has been on the list before, and that's support our ability and any local government's ability that, quite frankly, and our mandated requirements for public notice. Specific this year, though, for us, and it probably won't have an impact based on the timing, is the quadrennial reassessment that the Supervisor Assessments Office does. Dave Ryan's office is required to send every single property an assessment notice in the mail, and also to publish in the newspaper those same assessment changes. The bill for the publication in the Journal Star will be somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000. Whereas we could easily put that on our website for nothing, in addition to what we're also required to do, which is mail something to everyone. Wherever possible, let's take use of, this position is to support taking use of technology and in terms of how we do public notice. Next is design and build projects. In the General Assembly, that's just about to expire. Public Act 1020954 was brought to bear, and it gives counties now the chance to use design build as an option for projects. Prior to that, it was not an option for counties to use design build as a project delivery method. We saw that when we reconstructed the intersection at Allen Road and Willow Knolls. We wanted to do a design build that for a project to go fast, but we had to have the city take the lead, because as a home rule municipality, they can do design build. At that point in time, we could not. The act allows us to do that, but at the same time, it requires us to use the state's utilization goals for MBE, WBE, DBE, and VBE. We would, look to have, or we would look for support if there was going to be some type of a trailer bill that would allow counties the choice of either using the state's goals, or if we have our own locally and legally adopted disparity study, we should be using those goals. Next, township bridge allocation. This is not in here just because there are 2 county board members that are also township road commissioners, but it is an important issue, and that is the township bridge program has been allocated $15 million a year since 1979, and that is statewide, and that is woefully inadequate for townships across the entire state. Just here in Peoria County, we have 50 bridge structures that are township bridge structures that would meet the eligibility requirements, and that's probably several $1 million worth of work. But our allocation annually from the state and the township bridge program is a grand total of $144,000, and it's been that since 1979. So here it's looking to support anybody that would be looking to modernize the township bridge allocation. And then last, court funding, something that's on here every year, support the full funding of the court system, which for us is important because that means we want to see adult and juvenile probation services fully funded and juvenile detention services funded, because positions in those departments are salary reimbursed by the state, and if the General Assembly passes a spending bill and the governor signs into law that fully funds those, that means we're getting the maximum amount of salary reimbursement possible. Any questions on requests for position support?
Any questions? So, Scott, for new board members, can you give them kind of a little overview of Anderson Consulting and what we do, work with them?
Sure. So Anderson Consulting, and I will not speak to them exclusively, but because we have a couple of different lobbyists. But Anderson Consulting, which the board approved at one of the last 2 meetings, an extension for, they are our lobbyist in Springfield, specifically on legislative issues. And they have been for somewhere between 25 and 30 years. They work directly with our legislators in the Capitol. They pushing and advocating on our behalf for these issues and other issues that come up throughout the entire legislative session. I would say the overwhelming majority of their time is spent playing defense. They have to look at every single bill that's filed and determine which ones have an impact, positive or negative. Normally they're negative, on either county government or Peoria County government, and then keeping me informed of what those issues are, and then asking us for a position, and then advocating for whatever that position might be. Sometimes it's support, sometimes it's oppose, sometimes it's neutral. It just depends on the issue of the day. A good example is Jennifer and I, and Jennifer in her role as her day job. We spent 4 hours on 2 Zoom calls on yesterday and Monday talking about a trailer bill for the Veterans Assistance Commission. Didn't get all that we wanted, didn't get much of what we wanted in those negotiations. But Anderson Consulting was at the table with us. They're also at the table, or at that table on behalf of the Illinois County Board Members and Commissioners Association. I'm sorry, the Illinois Association of County Board Members and Commissioners, because they're also the contract lobbyists for that association, and they're also the contract lobbyists for I think the Southwest Mayors Association up in the Chicagoland area, and a whole host of other clients that are local government based. So that's what they do day in and day out. We also they will be here at the legislative breakfast, and then throughout the course of the session, not every month, but throughout the course of the session, they'll be here as a check-in to kind of give an update as to where we are legislatively. And then we also have under contract 2 others that deal directly with economic development projects, and so they're project specific, and that is Torricelli and Associates and Ribley and Associates as well, Warren Ribley and Associates. So, and again, they're economic development project based, and they are project by project.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Let's see where we are now. We are at miscellaneous. Is there any miscellaneous? No? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.